We'd like to welcome you back to part 4 of our current event and weekly Bible study for December 21st, 2014. And I have like 4 hours and 17 minutes of recording time on this recorder, so I had to just upload that, and I'm going to keep going. I don't know how long this is going to end up going. Probably 5-6 hour, at least 5-6 hour study. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do a study next week. This is kind of more of a mega study. But the reason it's so hard for me to get to these health corners, and I get a lot of requests for them, but the reason it's so hard for me to get into them is with all the breaking current events, a lot of times it just gets pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So unless I do a dedicated study where I'm literally going 5-6 hours, typically it's pretty tough for me to get into anything with any kind of substance. This subject of vitamin D, skin health, chlorophyll, all of this, it all relates to one another, and it's like if I just talk about one isolated thing, I'm leaving gigantically huge important segments out. So kind of figure I just need to kind of go all the way, and what I did is I basically kind of updated, copied and pasted my newsletter, The Keys to Healthy, Youthful Skin and the Truth About Sunscreens. A lot of it I've already read. Some of it's that information I read you on vitamin D, and then on the chlorophyll. I talk in here about calcium carbonate and calcium and how that relates to the skin. I'm not going to get into that because I've already kind of went over that. Talk about linin B6 and cataplex F, the two forms of vitamin F, omega 3 fatty acids and flaxseed oil, and so how that relates, in the information about barleans and keeping it refrigerated and stuff like that. And then also a product that Standard Process makes called dermatrophin, which is like, it's a product you would take for any skin case. It basically will enhance whatever you're doing. Like if you're taking cataplex F and calcium lactate and chlorophyll, what it does is it helps target those vitamins, minerals, and nutrients into the skin. So it's something you could add into any skin case that will help. I had a patient back in Fort Myers, and went to the same. His whole family went to the same Baptist church. I just talked to them the other day. They've been my patients for a long time, and he had his own landscaping tree service business, and he had literally, when he came to me the first time, he had these precancerous, if not, who knows, possibly cancerous, skin growths all over his arms, both arms, because he had, I think he had always had his upper body covered, but his arms weren't. So I put him on this protocol, basically with the chlorophyll complex, calcium lactate, cataplex F, dermatrophin, and then I also put him on a product called Vitanox, which is probably the most powerful herbal antioxidant that I have. Chlorophyll has the antioxidant components in it that we talked about, but this is one that has it's very, very concentrated in its antioxidant capacity. It's very, very healing to the skin. It's probably the best, you say beauty nutrient that I have, meaning that when you take it, you can literally see a difference in like an hour or two in your appearance. It gives you almost like, I'm not going to say it reverses your aging, but you look younger. You have like this glow. And it's very, very good. Probably the best antioxidant skin product I have. Now, it's not going to give you any chlorophyll. So this man, and I realize it's a lot of stuff to take, but he also had a very serious thing going on. And they were able to afford it. I put him on it, and literally all these things on his arms went away. Both sides, they went away. And he ended up having to take less and less of the protocol to where now he's just kind of on a maintenance protocol. As far as I know, they're still doing what they do, and he's had no issues. And anytime they get a health problem, they contact me, and we get them fixed up. So instead of, if he would have went to that for an MD, or went the medical route, dermatologist route, they would have said, okay, this is serious. You need to admit yourself into the hospital right now. We need to do like umpteen dermatological procedures on you to remove all of these skin, and then they would test them. Some of them may be cancerous, some of them are precancerous. I mean, they would have tried to put the fear god in this guy, like so often happens, and he would have probably it would have probably taken, I don't know how many trips to the dermatologist to address all of these things. He had I don't even know how many. I don't know if he had hundreds, but dozens upon dozens upon dozens. It would have been thousands upon thousands of dollars. He would have been in misery from all the surgical scars. And none of it would have addressed the internal cause that caused all of these things. Remember when I talked about the farmer in that article? With the farmer, how they tend to get, develop thicker skin, and they're not getting enough of that F factor, and they're very much prone to these skin cancers. Well, he was in that exact boat. What I did is applied these exact nutrients that I'm telling you about, okay? And he was getting plenty of vitamin D, so he didn't need any. I mean, if you're getting plenty of sunlight, don't supplement with vitamin D. Remember, it's a fat-soluble vitamin. You can get too much of this stuff. But we got him on the F, we got him on the calcium, we got him on the dermatrophin, we got him on the chlorophyll complex perils, and the Vitanox, and it all cleared up, and it's cleared up to this day. And this has been 15 years? It's not like this just happened last week. The problem that I ran into in private practice is that most of the time, either maybe the protocol was cost prohibitive, but a lot of the time, the patients didn't want to take that many pills in that many products for any kind of length of time, if at all. They wanted you to give them one supplement and have it do everything. And that's just not reality. If you have a complex problem in a skin issue, because of all the things that I went over today, it's complex. It's not simple. It's not cookie cutter. I can't give you a product called Omniplex that fixes everything. God, I'm sure, has that, available. I'm sure he could create something like that, but I don't know of where to find it right now. And so I put him on this protocol, and it worked. He's been skin cancer free for 15 years, and he's had some other health issues, and those have been cleared up too, just with the protocols we put him on. But there was a patient that was compliant. See, compliance meaning seeing something through and understanding Rome wasn't built in a day. This took him literally decades to get his skin into the situation that it was in, where he had all these, who knows if they were cancerous, to precancerous lesions. And it wasn't going to just, they did go away relatively quickly, though. I mean, it was amazing how quickly they went away. So there's just one case. But he was a very compliant patient that was able to afford it. And the reason I say afford is the chlorophyll, because it is so incredibly hard to make, is the most expensive standard process that they make. Okay? And I'm sorry that that's the case. It's the only oil-soluble chlorophyll I know of on the planet. You can contact, if you're outside of the United States, you go up to, standardprocess.com. They have a contact tab, and ask them if there's any way I can get this in other countries. I can't get into overseas shipping anymore with customs and all of the hassle and the paperwork and all of the things they want to impose. I just don't have time to do that, being a one-man band in this ministry, to get into that. But I do believe sometimes they are available overseas. There are other doctors that use these overseas. Vitanox is also a very expensive product. And I'm telling you that just in case you're wondering. I don't want you to have any sticker shock, because those are expensive products. It's an herbal antioxidant, and it's probably the best, like I said, antioxidant, most powerful antioxidant I know of. I take one per day, and I know that it's had a tremendous impact, because I did a lot of stuff regarding sun exposure early on where I should probably look like a leather couch by now. And I don't. And I know that God showed me these things so that I could understand how to prevent that, and also, more importantly, to help other people. So what I did is I just put the price list here for the calcium lactate, the Cataplex F, Linum B6, Dermatrophin, Chlorophyll Complex, Cholecol, in case you, it was the one thing I said, in case you can't digest the chlorophyll, okay? But that's more of a gallbladder liver flush issue, which is separate. Cholecol would just be short-term so you could digest it. And then the Vitanox. Anyway, that, and you can also go, in fact, I'll even put a link here. You can go to Standard Process, but they're getting more generic. Actually, you can just go to standardprocess.com and you can click on Standard Process product line or MediHerb, because they're sister companies. All the MediHerb products are made in Australia. And their sister companies, the MediHerb products tend to be more expensive because they come from Australia. But they're getting more and more generic with their definitions, I've seen. I mean, to the point now where it's like, you know, they're so afraid of the FDA that they can't claim anything. So, like, what I'm giving you today is like inside information you're not going to get from the company. You would get it from a doctor if you had a consult, which is what I did all day long for a number of years. But the way I saw it, I was only reaching one person one at a time, and they couldn't take in everything I was trying to throw at them. So for me, it's a much better deal to have a ministry like this where I can get into biblical truths, get into the nutritional stuff, put out to large numbers of people what I believe the Lord's shown me, what I believe I've seen work. I don't have all the answers. I'd be the first to admit that. I learn new stuff every day. But try to get that out so that it's more beneficial. I'm reaching masses of people rather than one-on-one. And you may want to even print out the last half of this PDF, because this information, you know, if the website were to ever go down, well, this would be on the website in the PDF, but if the website ever did go down, stuff like this you wouldn't have access to anymore. And what I have here also is you can email me at my email address, drjohnson@ix.netcom.com, for a shipping quote and ordering instructions. If you're within the United States, and I'm sorry, but I just can't get into the overseas, even into Canada. It's just like a nightmare, and an increasingly growing nightmare trying to do that. So I do apologize about that, though. Anyway, let's go further. Now, another thing that you can do, which is also something, so you could say, well, okay, well, there's got to be some stuff we can do topically. Oh, yeah, obviously that's the case. I would say, as far as bang for your buck, using virgin organic coconut oil as a lotion on your skin is an ideal way to rejuvenate the skin. Not only does it prevent the formation of damaging free radicals, okay, which are the things that age you, one of the things that age you, and protects against them, but it can also help keep the skin from developing liver spots and other blemishes caused by aging and an overexposure to sunlight. Now, you can get that at pretty much about any health food store. Try to get the organic, like first pressed. Let me see, I've got some right next to me actually. This looks like a good one. Organic extra virgin coconut oil. This one's Nutiva. And it's only got organic, unrefined, cold pressed extra virgin coconut oil. You don't really want anything else but that. It's a really good fat. This kind of fat actually helps you burn fat. This type of fat is actually called a medium chain triglyceride. Or it's in that family, which actually helps you burn fat. It's very, very good for energy. You can use it in a lot of recipes. Just remember, if you're heating it, using it in, you're going to destroy a lot of the good properties. It's still probably one of the best things you could cook with. I like using grapeseed oil to cook with. Sesame oil is good because it has it's very, very hearty, and it won't, if ever you're cooking, here's how you know if an oil is kind of being really, really destroyed. When it starts to turn brown. For instance, if you were to put butter in a pan, and you got the pan really hot, and it starts to turn brown right away, well, you've just nuked the butter. So you want to use like butter at a lower temperature, in a pan, like let's say you're cooking some eggs and You have the butter in there, but you have it on like a medium-low heat. It's going to take a little bit longer, but the protein also is not going to become damaged as much, like if you're eating eggs or something like that, because heat will denature or damage protein. Heat destroys vitamins, minerals. It destroys the therapeutic processes of a lot of these things, and so that's also important. And then on this thing, just some things to look for. This is cold pressed and pure white. It's not refined. It's not deodorized. It's not bleached. So those are things you want to stay away from. If it's organic, it's not going to be made with pesticides, GMOs, or hexane. Now they're saying you can use this as a high heat oil up to 350 degrees. Wow. I still got to believe you're destroying some of the good properties, but now this is not going. It has this a diet that consists of a 3-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is a good balance. Versus the average American diet, which consists of a ratio of approximately 15:1 or more, meaning it's 15 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. Remember, omega-3 is what I just talked about, which is the good oil, the flaxseed oil, and fish oils are omega-3s, but they're different in their actions. One's EPA and DHA, which is the fish oil, and then I think it's the linoleic acid is the flax. So they say avoid out of balance soy, corn, canola oils. I wouldn't use soy, corn, or canola. Unless you could find like organic corn oil, which is almost impossible. All of them are GMO, and all of them you should not be putting in your body. Okay? Canola is also known as rapeseed oil. The stuff shouldn't even be allowed by law to be consumed. Okay? It's like the active component of mustard gas. It's from a mustard family. Okay? I'm not making this stuff. It really is true. Soy, horrific. You shouldn't be putting soy in your body. Okay? It wreaks havoc on your hormonal system. Practically all the soy out there is GMO soy. It is just, it's horrific. I have a whole document on soy. Just go up to like naturalnews.com and key in soy. Okay? Because they're going to have more reports on that exposing it. And key in canola. And, you know, those are oils you do not want to be putting in your body. Cooking with coconut oil, olive oil, and hemp oil is perfect for the this 3-to-1 ratio that they're trying to have between omega-6 and omega-3. So, anyway, that's a little bit on coconut oil there. Coconut oil helps keep skin's connective tissue strong and supple, which helps to prevent sagging and wrinkles. In some cases, it might even restore damaged or diseased skin. Coconut oil will not only bring temporary relief to the skin, like in the case of a burn, but it will also aid in healing and repairing. Unlike most lotions, which are just chemicals you're slathering on your body, your skin is one of the most highly absorbable organs of the body. And yes, it is an organ. It's actually considered the largest organ of your body, and it will absorb what you put on it. So again, that is by design. The sunscreens are by design put out there with all these cancer-causing chemicals. Anything with meth or prop in the label, and they're going to be laden, is cancer-causing. And then there's a host of others that are also cancer-causing. I can't keep up with them all. So you're literally putting something on your body that will actually cause cancer, both internally and skin. And you're blocking all your vitamin D because it's a sunscreen, which is not allowing the UV lights to interact with the skin to make the D3, which also is by design, because Satan knows how important that vitamin / hormone is for us. So you're preventing that as well. So it's like, you know, a double-edged satanic sword using sunscreen. I told you what to do in place of sunscreen, which is, now I understand there are natural sunscreens and Mercola makes them. If you know you're going to get burnt, okay, I'm not saying not to cover up. Or if you know you've got enough sunscreen or sun exposure, and you say, okay, it's time to cover up with a hat. Okay, I have no problem with that. But a little bit of sun exposure, obviously, to make the D3, to stimulate, also not wearing sunglasses, to stimulate all the things that I talked about with the eyes, is essential. Okay? And yes, Mercola does make some natural sunscreens that if you knew, let's say you were in a situation where you had to have that, okay, fine. Okay, but get some sun exposure. But the kind that Mercola is going to make is not going to have all the chemicals in there. So again, it's having balance, it's having sense. And it's actually the main thing for skin health is these other vitamins that will preserve the integrity of the skin, which is what I just got done talking about in the last part of the study. So let's go further here. Coconut oil can help bring back a youthful appearance to your skin by removing the outer layer of dead skin cells, making it smoother. The skin will become more evenly textured and a healthy shine. And the coconut oil will penetrate into the deeper layers of the skin and strengthen the underlying tissues. Now, if I were to have had, let's say, my patient I talked about, Mark, who had all those cancerous to precancerous lesions on his arms, had I had him take the protocol that he took and do the coconut oil spread on his skin wherever he's got these things or wherever he's had a lot of sun exposure in his life, in addition to that, he would have just got better that much quicker, is what it would have boiled down to. But ultimately, health comes from the inside out. So we had to address the internal cause, which was the low vitamin F, the low antioxidants. He wasn't getting probably chlorophyll in his diet. Maybe he didn't have enough calcium in his diet. We had to address that internally to ultimately correct the outward. But there are things obviously topical. You could do coconut oil internally and apply it externally. And it's very, very, very synergistic with this protocol that I'm talking about. Naturally, you need to choose a high-quality coconut oil that is free of chemicals and is not bleached or hydrogenated or can irritate your skin. My team and I have researched coconut oil, and we have found the ideal source. They're saying Tropical Traditions, which was one of the original pioneers of the coconut. So I give you a link to them as well. But again, I think you can go to most health food stores and just do some label reading and come up with a good one. The one I just read you there was a good one. Tropical Traditions is very good. But most of the time you're going to have to order that one. And shipping is going to be expensive because they're heavy. I mean, if you order any kind of quantity. Especially if you order one of their gallon tubs or whatever. I don't even know what the shipping is going to run you. Now, here are 4 different articles from Natural News about sunscreens. 7 surprising things you're not supposed to know about sunscreens. And there's so much disinformation about that. So many people are brainwashed about covering up in sunscreens. Then study shows that many sunscreens increase the risk of skin cancer. Well, they're laden with all these chemicals that are cancer causing. Why wouldn't they? Also vitamin D3 actually helps prevent cancer. Remember, that was one of the things that it actually causes when you don't have enough vitamin D3 in your body is cancer. It's just that if you're going out there getting fried and burned and not having all the other cofactors, you're going to be prone to skin cancer, regardless of how much vitamin D you produced, because those other things are lacking. So again, it's all about balance. And then the next one, more than 2/3 of conventional sunscreens contain harmful chemicals. And then watch out for the ingredients in sunscreens. So this will give you actually some, meat to chew on regarding what I talked about with sunscreens. So if you're not convinced, there's 4 different reports from Naturally News, Mike Adams, the health ranger there, about that. Regarding vitamin D3, I use the Innate Response formula. They're the only one I know of that makes an active, true food state, whole food, vitamin D, and they also have a whole product line. I have the multivitamins. And again, if somebody comes to me and they say, well, I know I'm low in D, and I just need a few things that I could do, I would say what everybody should do, obviously, you're one of the first things you always want to look at is detoxing. Making sure you have a nice, good foundation, a clean slate, okay? Liver, gallbladder, colon cleansing. Kind of bare minimum. Okay, if you haven't done that your whole life, and if you've eaten the typical American diet, I don't need to know if you need to detox. I know you need to detox, okay? And again, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is going to take some time. But beyond that, if you had like that covered, okay, I would say what you would want to do is do some type of really good food-derived, food state multivitamin specifically for your body type. The Innate Response Formulas has a men's 1 a day. They have a woman's 1 a day. A reason I do the 1 a day is because I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible for my patients, my listeners. And so they kind of pack a whole bunch of food state vitamins in one thing. You're going to cover a lot of bases, okay? And if you were going to if you had low D levels, and particularly if you had any kind of skin issues, you would really, obviously you want to do the D3, probably the D3 5000 international units until you get your levels, and also the chlorophyll. I mean, that's one product you could take which will basically compensate and give you a lot of these other cofactors that you might not be getting. If you weren't taking like a high dose of vitamin D, I think the multivitamin would be fine. I think you're going to get enough of the other. But for a specific skin case, and if you're taking any kind of quantity of vitamin D, I would add in the chlorophyll with the D because of all the reasons I just mentioned. Because it's like one-stop shopping. You got everything in one liquid chlorophyll capsule to supercharge the vitamin D and to make sure it has everything it needs to work properly. Okay, so that's just some things I'll throw out there for your consideration there. The D from Innate, 60 capsule, the 5000, it comes in that. It comes in the 2000 international unit, which is a 90 tablet, and then also a 1000 international unit, 90 tablet. And those would be, like the 1000, the 2000 would be more like a maintenance dosage maybe. Some people may find, I need the 5000. I need to do one every day. I don't personally feel like I need that much. I think that different people are different need levels of different vitamins. There's certain things I need a lot more of. D is not one of them, but my daughter's not that way at all. She needs a lot of D, it seems like. And it really has a tremendous effect on her moods, her emotions, and that. I mean, she's like a different person, when she has that in her system. So, and I think that figures into that whole seasonal affective disorder, and the sunlight. And she does a lot better when there's sunlight, and she just feels better. It doesn't affect me that much. It could be gloomy all the time. I don't know. It doesn't really. I guess enough of it I would start to get, but it doesn't have that extreme effect on me at all. I seem to be very, very hardy in that particular area. But like certain things like vitamin C, man, I can't get low on that stuff. I'll get sick. I could take the silver and knock it out, but it's not going to give me the vitamin C that I need for my primary immune system function. So everything has its place. So anyway, I give you the, I'm still running the 5,000 part per million on the Invive special at $95 a bottle, which is $5 off, and then with free shipping. So if you ordered any of the D3 and ordered a bottle of the Invive 5,000, you get free shipping with it. I'll run that special as long as I have inventory to do it. And I give you the descriptions here of the 2000 international unit, Innate, the 1000, and then the 5000. So I give you the labels, the description. Now, the 5000 actually has the K1 and K2 in it. For some reason, I don't think the other two have that. Yeah, for some reason, only the 5000 has the K1 and K2 in it. So that's, I don't know why exactly they formulated them that way. But again, if you're on a good, like, multi, okay, which is kind of like foundational, and then you were doing this, you're going to get a little bit in, like, the Innate multi, but you're just not going to get a therapeutic dose. That's the thing about multivitamins, is that a multivitamin, you have to understand, and I don't mean like the Walmart or Walgreens multivitamin with, 8 billion grams of B1. It's all synthetic garbage. A true multivitamin, you're going to get trace amounts. You're going to get a little bit of everything. I mean, if you got a lot of everything, the tablet would be the size of a beach ball. It'd be kind of hard to swallow. So what you're getting in a multi is a shotgun product. And a shotgun, like when you fire a shotgun, it puts out a ton of pellets. And it's just covering a lot of bases. Okay? It's more of a foundational thing. It's like if you can only do one product, that type of thing, that's what you kind of want to do. And then you get into more specific things, and it depends on specific needs. Some people might feel that they have a real need toward the D3, and then they get their levels checked, and that's confirmed. Some people might have a lot of skin issues and have had a lot of previous sun exposure, may need to go on a specific sun skin protocol to repair all the damage that was done from all those years of all these free radicals, and then not having all these other F factors and calcium and antioxidants present in their system. So the damage was a lot worse than it would have been had they had those. So it depends on the person in regarding what they need. Now, this is another report from Weston Price, which is one of like the premier whole food things you could ever check on the internet. I mean, they're like they're whole food all the way, and they're very compatible with the product lines I use, because a lot of the product lines I use, the doctors that helped develop them they work together, you know. And so this is a report, and it says vitamin D utilization depends on vitamin A and K and magnesium. Now remember, really, if you really want to look at what it depends on, vitamin D utilization really is dependent upon A, K, magnesium, and those F factors, okay, as far as utilization goes, because the F counterbalances. It may not help, it may not be so much for the utilization, but you got to have it. You got to have it in balance, or else your calcium ratios will get all out of whack. So I give you all of this information in here, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but remember, when you read this, I'm pretty sure most of the studies that they're citing, though, are most likely regarding synthetic vitamins that they're using, because a lot of them would be university-type studies, okay? They're big on cod liver oil, okay, which is very high in, not really very high, but it's higher than most things in A and D. Now let's look at that real quick. So I'm getting the cod liver oil I got from Standard Process. Now the thing with any kind of fish oil, what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's been through some type of screening process, like molecularly filtered, that type of thing, in order to remove the heavy metals, because heavy metals are a huge problem with fish. Cod liver oil is an omega-3 oil, and it does have the portions of the omega-3 family, the DHA and the EPA. The DHA is very, very important for brain function and development. Most of our brains are fat. And they've done studies where almost every cadaver that comes in when they're like, 70, 80 or whatever, their brains have like shrunk to like, I don't know, half the size or something, or they're very much shrunken. Well, it's because those good fats have been depleted that help make up a lot of the brain. And this has a lot to do with the mental problems that occur later in life, because their brains are literally shrinking. And they need the DHA in order for proper brain development. You need a DHA if you're a baby to develop a proper brain. And that's why it's criminal that they took out the DHA in the baby formulas here for a long time. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but they wanted to make sure that as many babies were as brain damaged as possible by removing the DHA from formula. Obviously, it's 1,000 times better to breastfeed, because that's like your mother's, it's like the perfect food for that particular baby, and your mother imparting its immune system to the baby and giving it specifically, especially if the mother's eating a good diet. Okay, whereas formula is not that way, and soy formula is just absolutely insane to give a baby. You should not give soy for anything, as I've said before. But the DHA is super important for babies. And then the EPA is very, very good for cardiovascular issues and keeping the cardiovascular system working and the blood flowing good and that type of thing. So cod liver oil is very good for that. But if you look at the label, you're only getting 90 international units. And these things are like horse pills, okay? You're only getting 90 international units. And I know I just said, well, isn't it all about the quality? Yeah, and it is. It's just that that's probably not going to be near enough, if you're actually low in vitamin D, to actually bring your D levels up, okay? They were saying that you needed to have 1,000 international units per day produced through the skin to most likely just maintain healthy vitamin D levels. And this is only 90. So it's an awesome product. It's just that it's not the primary thing I would do for vitamin D. Okay, real good. These are good for anti-inflammatory. Very, very good for cardiovascular. It has 2,000 international units of vitamin A, which A is another thing that the vitamin D molecule needs to work. Now, but like I said, I looked at this and I said, okay, it has A, but then again, so does chlorophyll complex. Chlorophyll complex also has the magnesium. Chlorophyll complex also has the vitamin F. Okay? Chlorophyll complex also has the K. The only thing in the cod liver oil that the D needs to work is the A. So as far as for your money, as far as for covering the most amount of bases, as far as for taking one specific product that would make vitamin D3 utilized in the body and work properly, it would be the chlorophyll complex by standard process, hands down, because you're getting everything, okay, in one pill. So that's why I didn't so much emphasize the cod liver oil. It's a great product. It's just that for this, I think it's a little bit overblown in how they're emphasizing it, because there's all these other things you gotta have for the D3 that you're not going to get in cod liver oil. So they're citing some studies here, and it says vitamins A and D protect against each other's toxicity in humans. Now remember what I said about fat-soluble vitamins. They are fat-soluble. They can build up in the system if you're taking too much, and it's not hard to do that. I've had it happen to me with vitamin A, and it really hurts. Your joints will start feeling really bad. So they're showing that when you have A and D together, they will actually counterbalance one another and protect against each other's toxicity if you were taking too much. They show a study here. They also found that vitamins A and D only reduced colds and fevers when fed together. Okay, so really, if you have a D product, I mean, ideally there should be A in there, and I'm sorry to say mine doesn't have that, but you are getting the vitamin A and the chlorophyll. Okay, you're not getting a huge dose, but you are getting some. You would also be getting vitamin A and a good food state multivitamin as well. Okay, so again, this is why I went to supplement companies that I've worked with over the years, particularly Innate Response formulas, and say, hey guys, yeah, this is a great product you got, but you know what? You could really improve it a lot if you added this in, and if you did this. And I mean, their bottle sizes are way too big. They could reduce the bottle sizes, which, I mean, they're a nightmare to ship. Heavy glass bottles, and like the C400, they're only using half the bottle. Like, what are you trying to do? Give everybody the perceived value that they're getting more because the bottle's bigger? It's ridiculous. I have approached them on numerous occasions, and they've also discontinued a lot of really good products they had for no reason other than maybe the bottom line. I don't know. I mean, they still make products that I know no one else makes, but I have tried, and this is something that if they added that in to their D product, a food state vitamin A, hey, if they want to go all the way, add the magnesium in, add the F factors in, add the K, on all of their vitamin D products. They would have the best vitamin D product on the planet. But I don't know. I guess they haven't got the memo or whatever. And most of the time when you approach supplement companies, they act like, you can't tell them anything because, they're the purveyor of all truth and knowledge. Anyway, so A and D only reduce colds when fed together, according to this study. Okay, so just to emphasize D to the exclusion of A is not a good thing. Also, vitamin A is very important for lung function. Vitamin A is very important for eyes, okay, especially in the beta-carotene form, okay, which is what we were talking about, which is what the chlorophyll is loaded with, the beta-carotene, which is really more the active form of vitamin A. Okay, so again, ideal combination: chlorophyll complex, innate response formula, D3. Okay, you're probably only going to hear this here. There's probably not another doctor out there talking about this because it's just not typical. It's not something you're going to see. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that it's most likely you're not going to get all this info together, but the more I researched it, the more I realized this is really important, that this information all be known together. Okay, so let's go further here. And let's see. Okay, so nevertheless, the study quite clearly provides proof and principles in humans that vitamin A and D are most beneficial and safest when provided together. Several commentators on this blog and my Facebook fan page provided testimonials about their negative experiences with vitamin D. Now remember, these negative experiences are about synthetic vitamin D. Okay, this is an innate response formula of vitamin D. Not to say you couldn't still do that. You know, you couldn't, like, if you really, like, load it up and we're taking, like, I don't know, 10, 5,000 IUs a day or something. Yeah, you could, I'm sure you could get to that level, but I've never had anybody come back to me and have these kind of horror stories. But I guarantee you this happens with the synthetic. Now remember, the listener that mailed me initially and said, well, my doctor wants me to take a 50,000 international unit, I'm not sure if it was a shot or if it was a whatever, D2. I'm like, oh, that is going to, no. That's what we're talking about here with these testimonials. So, these testimonials about the negative experiences with vitamin D supplementation that support the protective effects of A and K. Okay, and remember, there's more than A and K you need. You know, you got to have the F, you got to have the magnesium as well. And they're leaving those out. So, Cynthia Frederick from March 2010, she says, I and many others have met on forums and have had adverse reactions to vitamin D3. Now, I guess she has taken a D3, but I guarantee it's a synthetic. And my lower amounts of 2,000 international units a day, though they were tested, and though I was tested and was deficient, even though the lower amounts, I guess that's all she was taking a day. And we do not have conditions that would make D contraindicated. I'm waiting for the long-term effects to take place in people taking these higher amounts who are not simultaneously increasing their A and K together. In 10 years, I will wager we will be hearing about the negative effects that the higher doses of this miracle nutrient have had on people taking it. As I mentioned before, there seems to be a subset of us whom even low doses, 1,000 international units a day, which is the lowest one I've got. But remember, that's a synthetic, okay, of vitamin D causes kidney stones. Why? Because they're not taking the K with it. Remember what I said about the K is preventative on kidney stone formation, particularly when D is involved? And that's where the chlorophyll is so good because it's loaded with the K? Okay, that's why. It can also cause chest pain, probably because you might be getting plaqued up. I don't know, because of all the calcium. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I doubt it's that, but I mean, eventually it could be that. Eventually, if you just took D, a synthetic D3 or D2, and you took it in large quantities, and it's bringing all that calcium into the bloodstream, and you're not counterbalancing it with anything like K or with the F factors, you know what? Eventually, you're going to get plaqued up, most likely, unless you're going to get kidney stones and unless you're going to get arthritis, or maybe you get all three. I don't know. Fatigue, aches and pains, even though our 25-OHD, which is the test for the metabolite of D3 that you can get at like a medical doctor, or I'm sure there's some, like when I was back in Florida, I ordered blood tests all the time from LabCorp. I wrote up those things all the time, and I mean, I also saved my patients a lot of money really doing that, because I mean I wasn't like billing them like an MD would, but yeah, we did that all the time. I just wasn't. This thing about the D and the importance of it is, it's kind of recent. It's more recent. It hasn't been something that's like 20 years ago they were doing this, typically, you know. It's more research that's come out more recently. Anyway, even though our 25-OHD levels were low, we got these symptoms as after just a week on the synthetic, and I guess D3, at only 1,000 international units a day. And again, everybody's different. Everybody's going to react differently, and particularly if you're taking something synthetic, an oil-based, basically hormone, fat-soluble vitamin, because that's what D is. It's a hormone, and it's a synthetic version. Just like certain people are going to react adversely off a drug and it might not bother another person, at least not initially. Well, this is what we're dealing with here. Okay? We get these symptoms as soon as a week, as soon as 1 week after using the D. I saved myself a trip to the ER with the above symptoms by remembering previous articles of yours about balancing the fat-soluble vitamins. Okay? With the A, with the K, also with magnesium, and with the F factors. Okay, you really need to balance it. And then she said I took about 100,000 international units of A from fish oil. Man, she'd have to use a lot of fish oil to get that many international units. I mean, I'm talking, wow. I mean, did she like drink a whole bottle? Man. Anyway, she took about 100,000. Problem is like with the cod liver, you're going to get the D in there too. So that would be, I don't know. Anyway, she took about 100,000 international units of vitamin A from fish oil and 5 milligrams of K2. Within 1/2 an hour, all the symptoms disappeared. So that's how powerful this counterbalancing effect can be. Okay? And the 100,000 international units of A from fish oil, I don't have a problem with that. It's from a natural source. And even the K2, if it was a synthetic and it got her out of the woods short term, I don't have a problem with that. Okay? Anything, to get you out of the woods quick and then get on the right products, down the road. Within 1/2 an hour, all the symptoms disappeared. This happened more than once, so I know it's not a coincidence. You are definitely onto something here. So you see why I'm doing this study? Because it's like I've recommended D3, but there's a lot more to this enchilada that I needed to kind of put out there and educate, because I feel like if I'm talking about something, I'm responsible for it, and I don't want to put anybody down the wrong road. And if somebody's going to be really, really super sensitive to the D3, they really need to know what things they need to do to counterbalance it. Here's another testimonial from Lynn Rosadius from June of 2010. She said, I certainly know what happens when you get these ratios off. I naively had a vitamin D shot of 200,000 international units. 200,000. My biggest one is 5,000 international units. Oh yeah, more's better, according to the medical doctors. Just pile it on. 200,000 units after a serious viral infection, and what it did is it used up all my A. Great point. Her body threw every bit of vitamin A it had in its system to deal with this massive synthetic shot of almost guaranteed vitamin D2 into her system. The body was like, oh my word, I'm overwhelmed with this oil-based chemical that's mimicking this hormone that, and I know one thing the body's saying, I need vitamin A to counterbalance this, and a lot of other things. Well, she depleted all of her vitamin A. That's the thing about these things. If you're taking things, mega doses of one thing, especially if they're synthetic, you're going to deplete these other things that your body needs to process it, thus creating a far worse problem. Okay? She said, I wrecked my kidneys, thyroid, and who knows what else. It took 6 months and Chris's articles to figure out what was going on with me. Within a week of getting my vitamin A up with the cod liver oil and a ton of liver, maybe she was taking desiccated liver, I don't know. And I was thyroid blood testing monthly, so I had test results to compare. My thyroid hormones all normalized, so it affected her thyroid. You never know what's going to affect what in the body. It was fairly stunning. Another lady, Andrea Schuler, June of 2010, says, I stopped taking the D3 because I developed tendinitis. Now remember, these are synthetic D3s. Okay? Tendinitis. Remember what I said about when I took too much vitamin A when I was back in college? Yeah. I got it in my elbows, because it's fat soluble, built up in my joints. And so I know what that feels like. She got bursitis, tendinitis, tendon calcification. Why? Because the D3 is taking, or even the synthetic D, taking the calcium out of the soft tissue, putting it in the bloodstream. It's got to go somewhere, unless you have the F to put it back in the tissue. The F factors, the flax, the omega-3s, okay? And without that, you might get tendon calcifications. You might get, in her case, she got that. You might get plaque in the arteries. You might get kidney stones. You might get arthritis. So it's important to know this. This isn't just, oh, this is pointless information. No, it's important because you're dealing with fat-soluble vitamins, and the stakes seem to be higher when you're dealing with fat-soluble vitamins than water. Water's way more forgiving. B vitamins your body can flush out pretty quick. They're not going to build up in the soft tissues. Fat-soluble, whole different deal. So, and it's another reason I felt kind of compelled to do this study. Anyway, I brought my level from 20 to 50 in the OH test, meaning I guess 20 of this metabolite for vitamin D. Her levels were 20, she brought it to 50 in the 25 OH D3 test or whatever. But she says maybe 2,000 to 4,000 international units daily was not good for me, or maybe I didn't have enough A or K. Again, that's why I would take it all together and hopefully avoid any scenario like that, because you don't want to. Now, granted, I understand these are like the exceptions to the rule. They're not the rule, but, it is worth mentioning. Anyway, I put the whole article in here. This guy says, Tim Ferriss, he said, tripled his testosterone by bringing his 25 OHD up to 50 nanograms a milliliter. Meaning, I guess that's ideal, 50 nanograms a milliliter of this 25 OHD metabolite, the kind you get checked. If you could find a good alternative healthcare practitioner, would be the best place to get checked for a blood test. It tripled his testosterone. Remember, vitamin D is a hormone. So all hormones work in conjunction together with one another. Fat-soluble hormones, which are vitamin A, D, E, and K, are hormonal-like in their action. Your body has to have them to make hormones. And therefore, I could see how it could have that effect on his hormonal system. And so he brought he tripled his testosterone by doing that. Just one thing with vitamin D. And by following a number of other parts of his testosterone boosting protocols, including getting the vitamin A from cod liver oil and eating plenty of vitamin K rich foods. Again, the more things, though, you tell your patients to do, the less likely they're going to do them. If I say, okay, take your vitamin D, now I want you to make sure you're also doing cod liver oil. I want to make sure you're getting a lot of huge supply of green leafy vegetables to get your vitamin K. I want to make sure you're getting something also, taking a separate magnesium supplement. And I also want to make sure that you're getting enough F factors from omega-3 flaxseed oil. Most people aren't going to do that. It's too much stuff. Okay? That's why when I saw the thing about the chlorophyll, I'm like, it's got all of that in one thing. I would probably take them separately. I'd probably do your D and your chlorophyll separately. Like if you were going to do, I don't know, 5,000 international units a day or 2,000. Do that in one meal and then do your chlorophyll in another one. Because remember, most of those things counterbalance each other. So I think sometimes taking things away from one another help. Now, granted, if you took them together, it's not going to hurt you. It's just personally, that's probably the way I would approach it. And so anyway, this is some other things. He's also got some other resources in here. Anyway, I'm putting all of this in there. Probably another very good brand of cod liver oil is the blue Green Pasture. Probably the best cod liver oil on the planet. As far as they've been doing it a long time, and they've got a butter fermented cod liver oil. Which I guess has ADNK in it. ADNK. Okay, so that would be another option as well. Again, you're not going to get the magnesium. You're not going to get the F factors, though. So, anyway, I wanted to throw that in there. They are a very good brand. Just bear in mind, I like the big picture. Okay, now, let's go further here and listener question about chiropractic and how not to get scammed. This is from a listener, Mackenzie. And, it starts out by saying, I have some questions about chiropractors and figured you'd be the right one to ask. A while ago, Alan and I found 2 chiropractors, her husband, and they're part of a group called Maximized Living. Have you heard of them? My response, no, I have not. If so, what do you think of them? They say they're Christians. They took x-rays on our first visit and pointed out what were out of alignment. My response, in reality, we're trained this in chiropractic college. You cannot see subluxations, which is what chiropractors are trained in, on an x-ray. Okay? Subluxations are minor misalignments of the bones of the spine that cause interference to the nervous system. All right? It's what chiropractors are trained in. Dislocations, more people are familiar with them. That would be like a bone out of joint, like a dislocated shoulder. If you dislocate your spine, you will be paralyzed. Okay? Because a dislocated spine, you're going to sever the spinal cord in order to achieve a dislocation, most likely. Okay? So we deal with subluxations. Now, granted, you can have something like scoliosis, which is real easy to see, but is that necessarily... Subluxations are basically minor misalignments of the bones of the spine in relation to one another in the spine. And again, you really can't typically see them on an x-ray. I guess if the subluxation was really bad, you might be able to visualize it. I'm not saying it could never be done, but it's not typical in the way that chiropractors are trained. And so I was very skeptical when they said this about the being able to show them on an x-ray. So that kind of threw up a red flag to me. Okay. The whole maximized living thing, I'm starting to think this is a practice. This is a couple of chiropractors that are most likely in what they call a practice management group. Okay. When you graduate, there's all these sharks in the water. Then you go to these chiropractic conventions, and they're always trying to sell you something or show you how you can make more money and milk your patients for more and get them on all these extended care plans. And you get them in, and you really hit them hard. And it's almost like you're trying to brainwash people. And you're trying, and I never joined any of them, but I went to enough lectures, like for continuing education credits, and heard enough things to know what that was like. Sometimes you'd go to a seminar, and the guy specialized in a particular technique, but then he was trying to recruit you into this practice management group at the same time. So I've had that spiel go on for a long time. You know, I've went to a lot of different conventions. Okay, so what I did is I also posted my newsletter I've written on the subject of chiropractic in this particular email. I'll get to that a little bit later. And then she said they presented us an adjustment plan where you get 2 to 3 adjustments a week to correct the problem. They say it's called corrective care adjustments, and not many other chiropractors do it. That's not really true. There's tons of chiropractors that do it. And I agree with this in something like where there is a chronic issue, and let's say they've had it for a lot of years, and they're coming in, and a lot of, like, let's say degeneration set in, and, you know, it's going to take some time to correct the problem. Now, granted, you're not going to ungenerate the joint. There's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, I think stage 4 disc degeneration, and the further along you get along in that disc degeneration, the harder it is going to be to really affect a real change. In other words, you're not going to wave a magic wand over their spine and regenerate disc spaces that have already degenerated to 25% of their normal height. Okay, what that does is when you have that degeneration going on, you also have spurring concurrent or along with the degeneration problem, and you also have the foramen, which is the hole where the nerve comes out at every spinal level, starts to narrow because you're losing disc height. So you have more pressure on the nerve, so you can have more of a chronic condition. So, this whole thing about the adjustment plan, I'm thinking this is definitely a practice management group they're most likely in, or maybe it's something they were taught in college. And yes, we are taught that to a certain extent, but there's different ways of going about this, and there's a lot of high pressure stuff that goes on. And this is how chiropractors make their money, typically. And yes, they are taught this way, but if you get with a practice management group, it really can get extremely overbearing on the patients. And I was never about that. And it was one of the things I never liked about chiropractic was the fact that money was involved. You know, I just wanted to help people, but yeah, you do have to make a living. You know, just like I don't like mentioning money in my studies, like if donations are down and stuff like that, I hate it. I absolutely abhor it. You know, and that was, I had to deal with it every day in private practice, and it was just, a lot of times people, and this is typical, especially in today's day and age, people come in and they need, especially if you're doing the chiropractic and the nutrition, they need a lot of stuff. Their bodies are beat up. They're depleted. They're toxic. They need all this stuff. They need a huge 2-month protocol. And they may not feel good the first month at all because they might be detoxing. And they might want to wring my neck. And they may not want to come in, for maybe the necessary amount of adjustments. All that costs money. And what I found in today's Burger King mentality of America, where I want it my way and I want it now, not with everybody, but with a lot of people, is that they really, really did not want to do what it took to actually get better. And for me, it was like very frustrating being in private practice one-on-one, dealing with this on a daily basis because, hey, you need this and I feel bad, but it's going to cost this. And I'm not trying to upsell you. I'm not trying, but this is what you need. I can't help. This is what your symptom survey just told me you needed, and it's real obvious you need these supplements really bad. But that was a big reason why I was very relieved to get out of private practice. Because, again, I could help a lot more people one-on-one. And up here on the information superhighway or wherever we're at on the internet, if you don't really want to hear what I'm saying, you don't have to listen to me. It's cool. I'm not going to get offended, And there's probably a lot of listeners that tune this part out because they weren't interested in the health part. And that's fine. That's cool. And that's what's cool about the internet. You can listen to what you want to, and you don't have to listen to what you want to. And so, I'm thinking heavily reading this letter that this is probably some type of practice management they're under, and they're being coached. And, this is how these long-term care plans, and this is how a lot of patients, I don't want to get into this too soon. Yeah, I'm going to get into it later. Okay. I don't want to say it because this is all kind of a lengthy little email here. But this is the reason a lot of people get a very negative, bad taste about chiropractic. Okay? They get pressure put on them from the get-go. They go in, maybe they feel better initially. They're on some payment plan. And then it's like, yeah, I feel good for like an hour and then I'm back out. Okay, we're going to talk about that more later. Okay? Because I have, in the vast majority of cases, the solution on that. Anyway, then she says, we reluctantly agreed to the adjustment plan and started going in for adjustments. The beginning, I was feeling good after my adjustments, but eventually I got to the point where I really couldn't tell the difference when I left there. I also became very unhappy with the process they use. You get there, they warm you up for about 5 minutes, and then you get on a table and they do the same 5 adjustments every time on, I guess, every patient. Okay? My response was, this is garbage. If you are getting better, there should be less to adjust in subsequent visits. And it sure shouldn't be the same 5 adjustments on every patient across the board. Okay? I mean, that's insane. That's like cookie cutter, rack 'em and crack 'em, assembly line chiropractic, which I'm totally against. If I find something out of alignment, like if I feel your neck, I get right over that segment and specifically adjust that area with force apply into that area. I don't do what they call osteopathic adjustments, where you're just kind of grabbing the side of the head and just rotating one way or another to get as much of what they call the facets of the spine releasing where you hear the pop. Okay? I think we should be specific in all things. And I also did a lot of extremity adjusting, which I really believe was about as important as adjusting the spine, because that could have major impacts other areas as well. Extremity meaning, like, I adjust ankles, knees, hips, elbows, wrists, you name it. Okay? And a lot of chiropractors they don't do a lot of that. Okay, so anyway, a quick pop of my spine and then my C2 and C4 in my neck. Those are second cervical and fourth cervical vertebra. The warm-up is longer than the adjustments. Also, the table is an open room, so you see others getting adjusted as well. Again, that leads me to think practice management, because a lot of practice management things have open room adjusting. I don't really like that. I think the patients would rather have privacy. Personally, I would. But anyway, also the table is, I began to really question them when I realized that almost everyone was getting the same adjustments and the treatment that I was. Yeah, real specific to what you need personally. I said, you're right. I never adjusted that way. That is the Rackham and Crackham assembly line chiropractic, which I detest. Then she goes on to say, there were also a few times when I hurt my back on the farm, and I was hoping they could help me with that. They only looked at my back and told me it was inflamed. What? So when she actually has a legitimate, like, maybe subluxation of this particular area, and they say it's just inflamed, let me tell you something. If you go out and do something, and you hurt your back, whether you hear a crack or not, and all of a sudden you have like no mobility, you got all this pain. Pain is the greatest indicator that there is a subluxation in that area. Granted, you could have ruptured your disc as well. You could have pulled a muscle as well. But most likely those things are in conjunction with the subluxation. Okay? Meaning a minor misalignment of the bones of the spine. And the muscles, when you get these bones out of alignment, they will spasm in order to compensate for the subluxated bone. Because where do the muscles anchor to? They anchor to the bones. So if that muscle that's attached to the subluxation, if that muscle will spasm in order to guard the area, so you don't overstep your boundaries. That's why pain is actually not a bad thing. They're protective mechanisms God built into our body to tell us something's wrong. But what are we instructed to do in America? Well, if you have pain, take a drug to kill the pain because your body's stupid and it doesn't know what it's doing. So just kill the pain. Okay, that would be like driving down the car and seeing your oil light come on and you say, I have the solution. You take out a black magic marker and you blank out the oil light and you keep driving until the car blows up. Well, how can I relate that to chiropractic? Okay, you have lower back pain, and at first it's not that bad, but you keep doing things that keep re-aggravating it. You just take more and more drugs to kill the pain, and then that area is becoming worse until the point where you actually herniate the disc, which now you may be a surgical case. You have just taken the black magic marker by taking those drugs, and you blacked out the oil light until the point when you really had a problem. In the oil light's case, your engine would blow up. In your case, now you might be a surgical case because you have to have a herniated disc surgery. You know? Not exactly the right way to approach things, but that's the medical model. Okay? That's the way they do things. Brush the symptoms under the door. Take the drugs. Your body's stupid. It doesn't know what symptoms it needs. I mean, when you get headaches reoccurring over and over, is that because you have a lack of Tylenol in your bloodstream? Well, that's the way we approach it typically in America. Well, I don't have enough Tylenol. Obviously, vitamin T, Tylenol. So I need to take more Tylenol because my body's stupid and it keeps giving me these headaches. No, it's probably that your neck's out of position, particularly the upper cervical area. You need to get a specific realignment in that area to address the subluxation, which will take pressure off the nerves going into the head, thus the headache goes away. Or could be that you're drinking so much caffeine, your adrenals are burned out, and that you're getting adrenal tension headaches because your adrenals are shot from all the caffeine you're doing, and you're in constant withdrawal every time you don't get it. That's another thing that can cause chronic headaches. But I found from my practice that a lot of times a headache, I mean, you adjust somebody upper cervical, and by the time they're walking out the door, their headache's either gone or going away. I don't have a problem with taking like a BC powder once in a while to get you out of the woods, okay? But if they keep reoccurring, you have to understand. Our bodies were fearfully and wonderfully made, right? According to the Bible, well, symptoms are there for a reason. And it's not because our bodies are stupid, but that's the way medically they treat us. And that's what drugs do. They just suppress symptoms, typically, most. So anyway, let's go further. Let's see. So she hurt her back on the farm. They looked at my back, told me it was inflamed, then proceeded to give me the same adjustments I always got. It's like they're robots and they can only perform these few adjustments. I guess. I don't know. This didn't sit well with me, and I began to realize this whole thing didn't seem right. The whole thing felt like a scam. The plan I signed up for runs out at the end of the month, so I started looking for another chiropractor where I live, and I found one that I thought was pretty good. The only thing I didn't like was he talked about acupuncture and how energy flowed through the body. I said, yes, this is a red flag. And again, I've done a whole study in acupuncture. I am a board-certified acupuncture from the University of Miami. I got my acupuncture degree after I was a chiropractor. And I was doing all kind of new age stuff. I was the king of kinesiology. Muscle testing. They were grooming me to go and do seminars for standard process and teach it to other doctors and to also teach the standard process product line. The reason I was being groomed is because we were the #1 standard process practice in Florida. So I was like young, had a lot of energy, and I guess I was kind of what they were looking for, and they were grooming me for that. And I was very, very, and still am very versed in that standard process product line. But I never, #1, I realized then later, not too far later, that the muscle testing had a lot of new age in it. And that was, I was a baby Christian, but I was starting to figure stuff out, and I'm like, I mean, what are we going to ask the body with muscle testing? Who's going to win the Reds game today? I mean, some of these chiropractors, they go that far. They're like, okay, well, is this because your Aunt Trudy abused you when you were 3? I mean, stuff like that. It gets into like fortune telling. I mean, it could just go crazy. It never ends. So I just got out of it. I literally walked away from my practice. I had to. I had attracted all kind of, particularly new age women, and I don't know, they just flocked to me, and it was bad. I had a practice built of new agers, and here I am, a born again Christian, treating all these new agers, and I was doing the techniques that new agers do. Kinesiology, I was doing applied kinesiology, what they call contact reflex analysis. I was doing acupuncture. And acupuncture is based out of yin yang, fire and ice garbage. It's based out of, it's like Taoism, There's definitely a religious component. I heard that a lot of the needles that they literally, they ship over from like China, where the acupuncture needles come from, are literally, quote, blessed before they go. Oh, really? That means like they're cursed. That means like each one comes with its own devil. So no, I don't advocate. I don't really have a problem so much with acupressure, because I do think there's validity to acupuncture. I mean, I've seen it work. It's just that, like acupressure, you're just applying pressure on certain points. Acupuncture, you're penetrating the skin with needles that have been supposedly blessed. So I'm not, there's so much new age in alternative healthcare, and I wish I had a better answer. I remember I was at this seminar, and like, I've been at seminars where like Christian chiropractic, and the guys were doing like pendulum dowsing in there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, as a baby Christian, it didn't impact me as much. But then like later I started thinking about it. I'm like, when I really learned it, I'm like, that's like dowsing is like, it's into the whole vein of fortune telling. It's into the whole vein of like, I know some people that would literally, new agers particularly, they'd walk around, they'd douse everything, have a little pendulum, wave, give them a nutrient, they'd wave it, oh, this is really good for me. Like, they'd have to ask the dang pendulum for permission to do anything. And I mean, the thing would do stuff that you couldn't explain. What does that tell me? A devil was connected to the pendulum, and whatever way it swang, then that was the devil doing it. Okay, so you got to stay away from that garbage. And anyway, let's go further. She said it really sounded new age to me. They immediately raised a red flag. I heard you talk about acupuncture, but my question is, since he's trained in acupuncture, is that enough to stay away from him? Or would I be just fine getting adjustments from him? I said personally I would steer clear. I have to err on the side of safety. I don't know what kind of demons are emanating and operating through this guy. I don't know. I wouldn't want him to impart anything to her. Just like with Reiki massage particularly. I mean, that's like just channeling devils, and so I would just err on the side of safety on that one. But praying and fasting about it is also a very good thing. And really, in this case, praying and fasting, God leads you to the right person. She said, I just want adjustments. I've had a friend tell me about his chiropractor who sounds a lot like mine, but does things like waving his hand over his body and moves around the body that way. That reminds me a lot of network chiropractic. If you ever see network, don't get near them. They're like new age extraordinaire. Probably the most new age technique I've ever seen. And it's like, that's on par like That's like the equivalent of Reiki, massage, network chiropractic. Okay, so let's go further here. I said, yes, this sounds very new age. The chiropractic profession is rife with this new age garbage. Is the big reason another reason I was relieved to get out of private practice. I mean, it's like I looked around me and it was like the longer I was saved, the less I had in common with my colleagues. Because like almost all of them were into new age, and a lot of them were just totally money hungry and greedy. And it was, I'm like, this is not what I'm about. And there was a chiropractor in every corner where I was from anyway. It's not like I felt like I was making some huge impact on humanity doing it. They had like 140-something chiropractors in Lee County where I lived. So, anyway, let's go further. Anyway, going back to the letter, she says, not sure what it's called. I guess the waving his hand over the body, moving energy around. Not sure what it's called, but it sounded new age, and it doesn't seem like it's of God. And again, there are so many new age techniques that you can do, that you can incorporate into chiropractic, that you can incorporate into massage. I mean, you name it. And then there's these machines that are even new age now. I mean, just crazy stuff. So yeah, it's like a minefield. It's like the world is a big minefield, and you're trying to navigate it, So, she says, I'm trying to avoid something like that. I feel like they are just imparting demons into you by doing this. What can you tell me about this so I can warn my friend what he's getting into? Also, any advice or recommendations for a good chiropractor? My response, the ones that are usually the least chance of being new age, as far as chiropractors go, are graduates from Palmer or Life. Okay? Now, Palmer almost for sure. Palmer was the first chiropractic. It was where Palmer was the guy that actually supposedly discovered chiropractic, even though really you can't say anybody actually discovered it. It's just taking a hard bone off a soft nerve. Okay? I mean, people, I'm sure, were doing chiropractic adjustments before supposedly Palmer ever discovered it. Anyway, they named the first college after him. It's the most prestigious. Everybody that's a Palmer graduate, typically, you'll see it in the phone book. Okay, so they're very, very what you would call straight. Now, that's a double-edged sword, because yes, they're straight, and yes, they're probably not going to be into the new age, but they're also not going to give you probably be able to give you any kind of real nutritional advice, which is what I'm going to get into next, which is very, very crucial. Life, which is where the college I went to, also is known for being very straight, okay? And so, if it's a Life graduate, they're typically not going to advertise because it wasn't the first, it's not the most prestigious, but they're going to usually tend to be more of a straight origin, okay? If somebody's from, like, Logan or Parker or National, they may tend to be a lot more new age. But again, I think there's more colleges now, so okay. So I just say Palmer or Life, you're going to have a less likelihood. And they're typically going to be pretty good adjusters if they come out of those two colleges. Now, the thing that I found, and I've said this many times, is when I put my patients on a manganese-based supplement, manganese, not magnesium, manganese, okay? Typically, I put most of my patients on that, okay? If they came to me and they were like, I can adjust myself, I've had back pain for a long time, this and that, and you adjust them, and you go through this where, oh, wow, I feel great for an hour, and then I'm right back out of alignment. Well, what that's telling me, typically 99 times out of 100, is that you're low in the trace mineral manganese. Without that trace mineral, you will not be able to hold your chiropractic adjustments. You won't be able to hold your joints in position if you get deficient in it. Therefore, you could go to the chiropractor 3 times a week for the rest of your life and probably just keep going, and it never ends. This is why chiropractic gets a bad rap with a lot of people. Then you have the patients that get themselves out and you adjust them one time and you never see them again. Now, that's somebody that's not low in manganese for one reason or another, and they have the ability to hold that adjustment in position, and they have a very positive experience. And they didn't feel like they got scammed. Now, if you got somebody like that, though, and they get one adjustment, and they signed up for like a year-long care package, and they're already feeling no pain, and I understand we can't always go by pain, okay? Like if you come in and you get checked and the chiropractor says, wow, you're clear, I'm checking, there's certain things you can check that aren't new age, like leg links, and you can feel the spine and stuff like that, and you know, no pain. Okay, well then most likely they're in really good alignment. Somebody like that doesn't need to keep getting adjusted, okay? What I would do with my patients is I would put them on the manganese when I first saw them, most of the time, and usually within anywhere from 1 to 4 to 5 adjustments, that's all I would need to see them. Because they would start holding their alignments, and they didn't need to come see me. Why come see me? All right? Well, the problem is we're not taught it in chiropractic, and if all chiropractors were to implement what I just said, it would absolutely devastate the industry. I would predict that they would have about 80% less business walking through the door. You're always going to have car accident cases, and you can't just put them on manganese and they're good in 1 to 3 visits. They've just went through an internal trauma, and that typically takes anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks, depending on the severity of the car accident. So there are exceptions. You can have somebody that's like degenerated, you know, disc degeneration and had all these chronic injuries, and yeah, you put them in a manganese, they're going to do better, a lot better, but they're always going to need care. Okay, so bear in mind, there's exceptions to this. But I'm saying in general, I have found, in this is something I've actually found lately, I was just giving everybody the manganese B12, okay? But I found that wasn't working as well on me. And it's probably because I've been in the gym a long time. I mean, I've been weight training since I've been like 15. And I was in several car accidents when I was younger. And I didn't get chiropractic care, so I waited, so I healed out of position. So I you know, that caused some chronic issues for me from a spinal standpoint. And I took manganese B12 from Standard Process for a long time. Well, recently it wasn't getting the job done for me. I was starting to have a lot more joint pain. I was in the gym a lot though. I thought, well, I'm lifting heavier. I don't know, probably. So I switched over to their I guess Cadillac product, their Cadillac manganese product, which is Ligaplex 2. Okay, and I started taking about 6 a day of those, and I mean, I'm golden. I mean, I was having all kind of upper back and neck issues, and I thought, what is going on? I even saw my local chiropractor here. I was adjusting myself because and I don't mean cracking my own neck. I mean, I have an instrument called an activator that puts out a 29-pound force at 1/300th of a second that realigns bones, and I was doing what they call SOT blocking, sacrooccipital, and I was getting that, and I was still in pretty bad shape. I started on about 6 a day of manganese, and I'm also doing the JCTH from Innate Response Formula, which is a really, really good natural glucosamine product. I'm taking a collagen product, and I'm doing some essential fatty acids. Okay? But it wasn't until I added the Ligaplex 2 and replaced the manganese B12 with Ligaplex 2 that this started happening. So I'm like pain-free, basically, after bumping up the Ligaplex 2. It's just it's a much more complete product that they have for joints. So if you've taken the manganese before and you really didn't see an effect, I would recommend you get on Ligaplex 2 at about 5 or 6 a day. Take it for like a bottle, because that's like 150 in a bottle, and see how you're doing. If you have joint degeneration issues, it won't regenerate your joints. Glucosamine, though, has been proven in double-blind studies to regenerate knee cartilage, if there's any cartilage left. And I also believe it has a regenerating factor on discs and on soft tissue, on cartilage, stuff like that. So I like the JCTH from Innate Response Formulas. I think that's pretty tough to beat. Also, a good fish oil acts as an anti-inflammatory. Tuna omega-3 by Standard Process, or the cod liver oil. Or just make sure you get a good filtered or distilled one from a health food store. The green pastures are really good for that too. So those are some things you can do. Also, some techniques that tend to not be new age. Well, if like they list it on what techniques they do in the phone book, diversified. typically not new age. Thompson technique, which is drop table work, that's not new age. Activator, typically not new age. That's if you want a very, if you don't want a manual adjustment where they're cracking you, you want something that's more gentle. Activator, okay. SOT that I just mentioned, very, very gentle. It's literally your body weight doing the work. It's probably the most gentle of them all. But some of the SOT practitioners can be new age. That's the trade-off. See, I learned all the techniques and incorporated them into one. That way I felt like I could help more patients that way. A lot of chiropractors get locked into one technique and they think, well, this is the only way to adjust a bone. No, it's not. That's just what the president of your technique club brainwashed you into thinking. I went, my roommate, I had a roommate in college, at a couple, and she was like my sister. Okay, I had two girl roommates in college. They were both like my sisters, and she picked the worst possible technique she could have ever done, which was Gonstead. It was developed by a guy with severely arthritic hands that weighed like 260 pounds. She was like 110 pounds soaking wet, and she wasn't very quick. And you had to be very quick and very strong to do the technique. She really wasn't either. It wasn't made for her. She picked it, but she was just brainwashed. It's like people get brainwashed into denominations, like, oh, this denomination's the only one. No. This is the same thing that happens in chiropractic. People get locked into one technique, and they think it's the only way you can move a bone, and all the other ways are just heresy. I never let myself get into that. So, Gonstead's fine, the one I just mentioned. It's typically not new age at all. Manual, if they say manual, that's typically, not new age. There's a host of other ones that are not new age whatsoever. Those are just some of the big ones, okay? Just to give you a little more info on the Ligaplex 2 product, it's what they call a combination product, meaning it's literally 6 different standard process products in one capsule. So there's something in there that I was lacking, that I wasn't just getting from the Manganese B12. And it's 16% of what they call, there's chiro yeast, cardiotrophin, which is one for your heart. I don't know why that would be in there. Osteotrophin, which is one for your bones. The Manganese B12 is 16% of it. Super EFF, which is a very highly assimilable fatty acid. And Cataplex E, which you have to have the whole food E complex for muscles to work right. So it's the best product that I know of for holding adjustments. It's also good for muscle spasms, overall bone ligament support, athletic injuries, long-term preventative support for athletes. Let me tell you something. If all sports teams were to take their $1 million athletes and put them on, let's say, a 6 per day of Ligaplex 2, I don't know, a 4 per day of the JCTH, and then put them on a fish oil. That was part of their regime. Do you know how many less injuries they would have across the board if all college athletes, high school, and professional athletes were actually doing that? It would be so unbelievably, staggeringly huge, the amount of less injuries they would have. It would, and the increased athletic performance, because all these guys are playing injured. And then what do they do? Well, they play injured. They get cortisone shots. Do you know what cortisone does when you inject it into a joint? Cortisone is a catabolic steroid. It literally, catabolic, that word means to tear down. You heard anabolic? They build your muscles up. Catabolic are anti-inflammatories. That's the benefit. They get you out of pain, but they're literally tearing the joint down that you're injecting it into. So long term, you're in far worse shape than you would have ever been had you not had the injections. But they enable you to play through pain, or they take painkillers to play through the pain. And again, it's like having your oil light on and you just ignoring the oil light. It's insane. Whereas if they were on a protocol like this, they wouldn't have a ton of these injuries. Not to say they would never get injured, but a lot of times if they did get injured, it wouldn't be nearly the same extent. It would be so gigantically huge for professional sports teams and for college teams, and would prevent so much misery from injuries that would have never happened. It would be staggering if they did that protocol I just said. I would guarantee that. Anyway, that's my recommendations there. And the point about the Ligaplex 2, about the manganese, is literally, in my opinion, the key to chiropractic. It is the missing key to chiropractic. But I'm really believing now that even I was underestimating that it's a little bit more than manganese. It's these other cofactors you're getting in a product like Ligaplex 2. Is really, it's the whole kit and caboodle that you're getting in there, that synergistic combination. That's what we talked a lot about today, synergism. How you got to have all of these other things in order for the D3 to work. If you don't have them, eventually something's going to become the weak link in your chain, and it might happen very quickly, and you're going to get a bad. Maybe you're going to start getting side effects. It's not going to work as well. You're going to be, it's just not the way to go. So what I did at the end here is I have posted my Healthy Living newsletter, Chiropractic Care, Injury Prevention, and Strong Joints. So if you want to know more about chiropractic just in general, here's a whole newsletter I put together on it. And I talk about the Ligaplex 2, I talk about the JCTH, I talk about the tuna omega-3 oil for the anti-inflammatory. Give you the prices on those. And then also, there's an organization called Christian Chiropractors. It's christianchiropractors.org. I was a member of them at one time. They weren't, ultimately what ended up happening with me is they weren't near hardcore enough. I mean, it's kind of like, going to a kind of a lukewarm church. But at least they were trying. You know what I mean? At least it was someplace I could maybe point somebody to where a person was willing to take enough of a stance to call themselves a Christian chiropractor. Now, again, like I said, a lot of these Christian chiropractors I knew, I'd meet these guys at seminars. I mean, they were as new age as you could get. It's like they couldn't put two and two together. But obviously, you're most likely going to have a better chance of finding one that's not into the new age stuff. Now, they've even got a new age caution statement on their website that I posted here. Okay? And it gives you 4 tests that can help discern practices which may be effective in bringing about healing, but may not be acceptable to the created order of God. 1, if the healing is of a supernatural nature, employing procedures which transcends the law of nature, involving some miracle or miraculous event, and not performed in the same manner as healing that has been described in Scripture, it is probably not of God. Well, that's pretty good. I mean that's pretty good. 2, if healing is associated with or derived from a pagan religion, which is not biblical Christianity, it may be a fraudulent spirit doing the healing. Oh, it definitely is. 3, if the healing is apparently neutral as far as spiritual or religious connections are connected with it, uses methods which are not utilizing God's created order, it is not according to the law of anatomical or physiological circuitry, it is probably the work of a fraudulent spirit. It should be noted that prayer to the living God can be used in healing, even though it is not a method following God's created order of anatomical circuitry. The important thing to ask is, to whom are we praying? God can and does heal through prayer, but Satan can also do so through his false spirits if prayers are directly or indirectly focused away from God. Very, very true. Have you ever heard about the satanic altar calls that they'll give at some of these really, really hard rock concerts where they'll literally come up for healing and they get healed at like some satanic rock concert? I mean, like the really heavy metal ones? Yeah, that's happened. How do you explain that? The devils and demons that were actually causing the sickness? Satan just said, okay, you go away. I want this one to be sold out to me, and if this spirit of whatever, let's say, I don't know, some spirit of infirmity, the Bible talks about that, and Satan basically calls off his dogs, calls off the spirit of infirmity, and the person's like, I'm healed, I dedicate my life to Satan. Don't you think that's a deal Satan would want to make if he could? Especially if he knew he could use that person? Well, that's what we're talking about. Number 4, if the healing utilizes occult energy fields and forces which are associated with astrology, occult practices of animal magnetism, energy balancing, hypnotism, bad one, mind control, etc., it is working with a fraudulent spirit. Note, anyone who claims to be holistic and who claims to perform acts of healing on the whole man, body, mind, soul, and spirit is claiming something which only the Spirit of God is able to do. Acts of the healing of the body only are within the power of Satan and his followers, but Christ's healing was more spiritual than it was physical and involved in the spirit of man as well as the body. I don't know if I agree with every little point they're making here, but I think you kind of get the gist of this, you know. This man in his natural state just cannot do. All right. Anyway, that's something to think about. I give you the link to their website, to this New Age statement. It's basically you just click on the homepage. I'm assuming they have some type of network list. Find a Christian chiropractor in your area. I guess if you could find a Christian chiropractor that went to Life or Palmer, you're probably going to have the least amount of chance of finding a New Age dude or woman. Okay? So that's about the best advice I can give you on that. Now, then this next one, documentary reveals how medical and pharmaceutical industry conspire to maintain a failing business model and to destroy chiropractic. There's been a concerted effort by mainstream medical, big pharma, to destroy chiropractic, and this has been going on for decades, to label us as quacks, to label us as idiots and morons, when the reality is what they're doing is totally against the law of God in regard to you can't drug your body into good health, and you just don't drug somebody up until the point where the symptoms are suppressed to the point where they need surgery. Now, I understand, yes, there's a time and place for medical. I get that. Emergency medicine, I'm not going to tell you not to save someone's life and stuff like that. I get that, okay? But I'm talking about relying on the medical industry to try to provide you health day in, day out. It's not the way God intended it. Anyway, there's a whole article on that report. And then the last thing I already went over was the synthetic versus truly natural supplements. What kind of nutritional supplements are people taking? So this is going to end up being 48, 49 pages total. All of this information. And so I ought to give you a lot to chew on until next time that we do a study, which maybe this week, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know, because I ran beyond over on time here today. That we're getting into probably approaching 6 hours for this study. So anyway, that's all I have for today. And I will go ahead and close this out in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for this day, this time you've given us. I do thank you, God, that you were able to bring us together again, Lord God, to hopefully, Lord, explore more truth, to explore more devices of Satan, to explore these things with our own health, Lord. I pray, God, that you give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts to receive, that you would use the body of Christ mightily for your glory, that we would not be deceived, Lord God, on any level in our lives, and that the Holy Spirit would convict us on a moment-by-moment basis, Lord God, any areas of our lives in which we are deceived, Lord. I pray you forgive us for any and all sins we've committed as we forgive those who have sinned against us, and that the words of our mouth and the meditations of our heart would be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer, that you cleanse us from presumptuous sins and secret faults, that they would not have dominion over us, and that your name be glorified through us, and that you use the body of Christ mightily, Lord God, to save multitudes of souls. We ask all these things in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.